Here we go. Okay, so today for March 8, International Women's Day, knowing that this year the theme is #EmbraceEquity, I was thinking about what kind of Craftivist project to suggest to you. Okay, so this is going to be like the case study where I work through that cycle I identified from Sarah Corbett's book. So just her tips on organizing a session. She says that projects should last for 30 minutes at least so that people can think about the issue while they're stitching together. She gives other tips like people should feel cared for and valued when they show up to the space that you're using. She recommends that you keep groups pretty small, like 12 people or fewer. She suggests background music and refreshments, which we would have been having refreshments, but we're not together today, next time. And she even says, you need to think about what kind of project you want. She says that street art is better for bite-sized public craftivism, and the gift giving that we've spoken about earlier, like the handkerchiefs or the other items she made, is those gifts are better for more complex issues. And since I'm so interested in the relationship between space and the craftivism and the space and the issues, I was really pleased that she made the distinction between those two approaches. She also speaks about how important it is to sustainably source supplies. And I will admit that I love going to the thrift shop. In the UK, the charity shop. I follow an Australian who taught me a word, op shop. In Texas, we go to the Goodwill and to garage sales. And here in France, we go to the marché aux puces or to the vide-grenier. And I will admit that I tend to kind of hoard up and buy supplies from these sources because it's less expensive than going to the store. But it's also a way to reuse and be sure that those materials don't wind up in the landfill. I even go to a store called Destokoman. Marine, I don't know if you've ever been there. It's in the zone here in Carpiquet. Charlotte, have you been to Destokoman? Okay, because Charlotte and I have been talking about going to Action. And has anybody been to Nose? Nose is like a big destock store. So Destokoman, Destokissimo, Nose. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I like going to those places. And I know that Destokoman bought the supplies of a mercerie that went out of business. And so I've been buying all sorts of things at a less expensive price, but also they don't go into the landfill, they go into my craft projects. She also recommends using the least amount of plastic as possible, or being sure that the plastic object serves multiple purposes if possible. Okay, so I was thinking about the different issues I wanted to deal with today. And every year on May, well, not every year on May 8th, but every day, every year, I'm thinking about a lot of these issues. I'm thinking about the pay gap. And it's true that the pay gap is still really obvious, even at the university where we're all on a pay scale. There's still some inequalities regarding bonuses and things like that. Our university sent out some statistics today. You probably received some from yours as well. So one of my very first ideas that I really liked was making a check to ourselves to bridge the wage gap. And I noticed that anytime I've spoken about having a seminar about the pay gap or the wage gap, my colleagues go kind of pale and they look really nervous about talking about that. So I'm oftentimes thinking about the pay gap. Of course, violence against women. If you follow the Feminicide account on Instagram, oh, somebody help me out. It was at 34 feminicides up to date. Did anybody? It's like a number that's pretty shocking, knowing it's the beginning of March. And something that I do think about every March 8 is Women's Day is not a commercial event. And this one is a really big sticking point for me because I'm very passionate about marketing. I love teaching marketing. I love following trends in marketing, but I get very upset when I get a discount because it's Women's Day. And when we see that Nocibé or Sephora or even Yves Rocher are going to be having special marketing events because it's March 8th. Now, I do have some friends from Central European countries in which the tradition for March 8 is to give a flower to the women in your family. And I think part of the issue is, if we look at a whole European culture, we do have some countries where it's not like Mother's Day, but you give a gift to women. And so I think that there's some work to be done between speaking about women's rights on March 8, traditions of recognizing women for March 8, but then this in between of the commercialization, it's really a sticking point for me. But ultimately, I decided that my project would be about the mental load. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure everyone here knows what the mental load is, and everyone's mental load is different. Marine, I know we've already spoken about it. Maggie, you and I spoke a little bit about it yesterday. And I was thinking about how we're confronting the mental load at home, especially if you have children, but you have it even if you don't have children, at work. I'm just going to go ahead and say I've had a lot of emails from some male colleagues this week telling me that they don't know how to send an email on a listserv. They don't know how to use Google Docs. Can I do it? And they deleted all of my emails about the conference. So could I send them again? And I kind of have not been feeling very gentle about it. I've been feeling pretty subversive about it. So I've had to really not be angry about it, because I know they're not ill intentions, but I'm like, you have got to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. But even at work, it can be things like being requested to do the care of the students. I feel like I'm speaking very openly about my own personal opinion, but I feel like during the COVID continuité pédagogique, that it was a lot of the women who were dealing with the care of the students. Not that the male colleagues weren't doing anything, but I know some of my male colleagues asked me to write a reassuring message. And I just thought, well, why can't you write a reassuring message? So I felt like this was really showing some of the gender inequity. And even with extended family, I've spoken to both French friends, American friends, English friends. It seems like if you are in a heterosexual couple, it seems like once you're in that couple, you kind of take over caring for the extended family as well, by reminding to send birthday cards or birthday texts, etc. And this year, with the Embrace Equity hashtags, I thought we really need to do something about the mental load. So y'all probably know Emma. She's already made a really great comic about the mental load, which has been translated into English. And one of the big taglines is from the guy, "But you should have asked, I would have helped." And this is the big frustration of having to say what you should do, because we don't want to have to do that. We shouldn't have to say, you need to feed the cat, that you need to take the trash out, you need to call your mom. We shouldn't have to say those things. And so she does offer a solution. She says, you need to divide up recurrent and non-critical chores, even if that means you're going to have to also maybe give up a little on your end about how neat and tidy you want things to be. And then she says, we have to let things go. We have to leave the house without preparing everything beforehand and not feeling guilty about it. And as I was thinking more about how the mental load was working for me, I'm feeling two things. I'm feeling like the mental load is imposed on me, but then I'm thinking, well, but I'm also absorbing it and accepting it. And maybe one of the big keys is just simply not accepting the mental load that people are willing to give you. We are speaking a lot in terms of a heterosexual situation, but it is not limited to that. So in the project, I decided that we would embroider a badge to wear, and you can either wear it or share it, gift it to somebody. And the idea is to be a conversation starter. Okay, we're not targeting a stakeholder or a legislator. We're targeting our friends and our entourage. Okay, that's the intended public, and ourselves, especially if you're really struggling with the mental load, if you're having a hard time saying, well, let's just let it go. Okay, so it's going to be something that you wear yourself or that you share. Okay, when it came time for the message, I really liked the message, share the work. I thought, I really like share the work, but guess what? Share the work is a bit general, and this hashtag already exists. Then I really liked share homework. And I really liked share homework because I knew we were going to be a lot of academics, and homework has two meanings for us. But ultimately, it's already exists as a hashtag, and it was used in its hashtag context uniquely in a school setting, just like share the homework. I was really disappointed to see that was only used for school homework and not for chores. So then I was looking at simply share the mental load, which, as you might imagine, already has a hashtag. And I think it's okay to have a project that's already been hashtagged, but because I wanted to make a special creation just for our day, I wanted to find something that didn't already have a hashtag. So I've ended up with dump the mental load. I don't know what you think. It's time for us just to dump it. Let's just dump it and get rid of it if we can. Let's stop bearing the mental load that is not ours. I mean, we should be responsible and handle our own things, but that invisible work that people are trying to give us, we should just not take it. Let's dump it. Let's get rid of it. And that might imply finding new personal or professional relationship strategies. And I'm like, well, dump can sound a little bit negative, but maybe here it's provocative, but not preachy, right? That's what Sarah Corbett has suggested to us. And I'll be honest, the alternative is to fuck the mental load. But as we're having a gentle protest, I'm offering up today a pattern on dump the mental load versus fuck the mental load. I'm working with my in-house graphic designer to also make the fuck the mental load pattern for anyone who wants it, but we're focusing on gentle protest. So today, the official pattern, which I'm going to put in the chat here in a minute, is dump the mental load. Now, it's too difficult to stitch in a dump truck, okay, but I decided just to put a little heart to remind us to be gentle with ourselves, because that's what it's about as well. Okay, so this is what our pattern, I can't wait, I'm going to show you now. Okay, so this is the badge. Okay. And this is the pattern evolution. So I had to measure out. I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, this is a plastic badge. The reason I chose the plastic badge is it keeps your embroidery clean and safe. However, you can pull the back out and replace the message as many times as you want. And we're not together today, but I do actually have plastic badges for everybody, including you SAGEF gals, okay? But if you want to make the badge without the plastic, you can simply sew some felt to the back of your canvas and put a safety pin or a pin backing on it if you feel very strongly about being plastic free, okay? But I had to calculate out what to do. Sarah Corbett recommends doing back stitching because it's the easiest and the fastest. And it's true, this badge is only 6 centimeters across. So we have to make the text fit to the badge. So I calculated out how much it was going to require space-wise. Then I decided this didn't look right. And then I decided this looked better. And then Gwen, most of you have met Gwen. So Gwen went to the computer and made a digital version of the pattern. Okay, so as we just mentioned, backstitch is the easiest and fastest to do. I stitched this on 14 count Aida, which is one of the largest. I forgot there's 16. Just to remind you, 14 count Aida, it's 5.5 squares per centimeter. Okay, so it's a large weave. It's pretty easy. I'm recommending that you use 2 strands of your choice. And when we buy a strand, when we buy some floss, I'll just remind you, for those who don't know, the floss actually has 6 strands, and I'm going to suggest that you just take 2 of those. Okay. And the alternative as well that I wanted to talk to you about, let me get it from my suitcase. The alternative I wanted to talk to you about is stitching on a duster or a dust cloth. And I was inspired. I'm going to show you a different project that did that, called, it's the Duster Stitchers. Technically, an English duster is going to be made more out of felt. It's going to be easier to stitch on. This one's very stretchy. However, it does have kind of a grid you could work on. The reason why some women are stitching on dusters is because they want to protest against the inequality of house chores. So it's coming back to the mental load. I did do a tester. I don't love it, but it has the symbolism of being stitched freehand on this, microfiber cleaning cloth. I feel like we can't read the words as well. It doesn't show up as well. But there is the symbolism of the dusting cloth. I think on a traditional English duster that's more felt, instead of being stretchy microfiber, it would be easier to stitch on. And again, we are using this plastic badge, which I can offer you an alternative. You can just put some felt on the back with a pin. Here are the crafter thought questions. Excuse me, there's a T missing here. Here are the crafter thought questions. What does mental load mean to you, and what part of it do you bear? Does your own behavior ever contribute to someone else's mental load? I thought this question could be really important. Are we ever relying too much on someone else when we should be stepping up and dealing with some of that invisible work? What steps can you take to dump your own mental load? What can you do so you're not bearing the mental load all yourself? How can we encourage other women to dump their mental load too, to embrace equity? And what can we gently yet firmly explain in order to share the mental load after we've dumped it? I guess I was thinking maybe we're going to dump the mental load and then try to reshuffle the cards a little bit, or not. Maybe we're just going to dump the mental load and see what happens. But this would be the questions to think about while you're stitching on your project. Okay, here are the domestic dusters I was telling you about. Okay. And this one from Still and Stitch is really very good because it shows all of the things that a person is thinking about at one time. This domestic dusters project was specifically to stitch swear words on the dusters. These are called sweary dusters. So technically not gentle protest. This would be more of a subversive project. Okay, so you're going to choose, are you going to go with the even weave? Are you going to go with the microfiber or a duster? Of course, you can use flannel, felt, cotton, what you have at home. I'm about to give you the pattern. Once you've stitched, you trace around the design, you cut it out and you put it into the badge, or you use that alternative method where you make a felt backing and then you wear or gift your Dump the Mental Load badge. This is going to be the personal message template that I came up with. If you choose to gift your Dump the Mental Load badge, I would suggest saying something like this. I have stitched a Dump the Mental Load badge for you because I know you spend lots of your time and energy caring for and managing others, doing invisible work. I want to encourage you to think about dumping the mental load you bear. If you'd like, we could talk about ways to better share it with your family or coworkers. You do not have to do it all alone. #embrace equity. Then with Craftivist love. Wow. And then, of course, sharing the project, I've made a table. You're going to see that according to the platform, it's going to impact who you can tag or what you should hashtag. And I will say, and Maureen can tell you, I recently did a chat with the doctoral students about using social media to communicate about research in human sciences. And one thing Sarah Corbett does suggest is making a list of hashtags that you can use and that you want to follow. And for example, our research team, Arabia, and the SAGEF, we have Twitter accounts, but we don't yet have Instagram accounts. So Arabia and SAGEF go from being tagged to being hashtagged. I think I didn't even put Arabia here, but I should have. Okay, so we have all of these accounts on Twitter. You're going to see down on Facebook. We do have a SAGEF account on Facebook that we can tag, but we might want to hashtag the SAGEF as well. I'm sorry, I'm using the same example. We can still hashtag even though we have an account, but there could be another thing like International Women's Day. We could hashtag that from the SAGEF on Facebook. Sorry, not very clear on this last part. Let me try again. It's going to depend on the group you want to work with and what kind of account they have for each platform, and if you can tag them or if you need to hashtag them. The Craftivists have a Twitter account, they have an Instagram account, and they have a Facebook account. So don't hesitate to tag them when you're posting about your badge. Okay, and then we have to talk about the follow-up. What are we going to do, whether you're following up with yourself or with someone else? And I'm going to suggest to follow Sarah Corbett's strategy of using the holidays to do that, or specific critical moments in the year where the mental load is particularly heavy. One thing we could do, you probably all already know, but Mother's Day has different dates between the UK, the USA, and France. Oftentimes for the US and France, it's the same date, but this year they're on these 3 separate dates. So if you have a friend who's a mom and who is particularly struggling with the mental load, that could be a chance to get in touch with her about that. I often find also that when it's time to make vacation plans, not everyone contributes equally. So maybe that's a time to have a conversation with your group of friends about, oh, well, how are you organizing? And, you know, the mental load, you know, it doesn't have to just be this division between a man and a woman in a heterosexual couple. Maybe the discussion about the mental load can also be, how can a group of friends help each other out when it's time to plan vacation? It could also be things like swapping cat sitting responsibilities, etc. A back to school time, especially when children are involved, or especially when an academic is involved, and it's time to go back to a routine after a couple of months of still working, but at our own rhythm. At the holidays, I find the holidays to be particularly hard for managing the family. And then by next year on March 8th, I encourage us all to evaluate our progress. Have we made any? Did we dump the mental load and find a new way to work together so that the chores are a little bit more balanced?